Hello there, Tuesday and Tim here again, wanting to talk more about what we're seeing in this time of COVID with our own systems change efforts, and hopefully some of this will resonate with you. Hopefully you might learn something. You can give some feedback that has us learning things. So just here for a quick little vlog today. We want to talk today about the need for experimenting, of testing, of prototyping is a lot of the language we use as we move through big change. And we wanted to bring that today because, of course, that's a whole field of work, right? We kind of know that if we're working with emergent or iterative change, we need to test and we need to prototype before we kind of implement change. But in this current environment, it's really hard to make that case, right? Because people are pulling back. No, our budgets are going down. No, we have to make quick decisions. This is a crisis that is unprecedented. We cannot possibly test and refine and iterate before we make change. And so there's a real pull back into traditional change making, and there's a real push away from testing and iteration and experimentation. So Tim, what's on your mind about that?
Well, I mean, for me, it's like top down, insufficiently designed change or any kind of strategy is like the easy thing to default to in increasing unpredictability, in a period of financial contraction, in a period where it's harder to reach out to people to get things done. And there's a whole series of risks that kind of accompany that, including like the harm that it might be caused to the reputation of the senior leaders who go about that, including the kind of like additional resistance and skepticism that may be generated as a result of a poaching change like that. And also, if you've been involved in any kind of participatory work up to this point, what you end up doing by kind of defaulting into a top-down based approach is that you undermine all of the success and credibility that you've built through engaging people so far. So I think there's an enormous risk to going back into small rooms of people who get to decide things for very large numbers of people without getting their insights at the moment, even though it can feel like the easiest thing to do when things become increasingly contracted.
Yeah, I think it feels like the easiest thing to do, and I think it feels like the necessary thing to do. I think that people are getting all sorts of pressure, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to respond? How are we as an organization going to meet this moment? And so, yes, I think it moves back to what we've known in leadership practice, but I also think there's a lot of pressure to move back. So even if people want to work differently, it's like we talk about the two loops. It's like the dominant system presses down, right, to extinguish experiments. That is exactly what we're seeing right now. A lot of dominant system stuff trying to extinguish some of those experiments. And I think that you're right. I think that especially if we've started a participatory change process, moving back not only hurts the credibility of the work and the leaders, but boy, does it really, I don't know if the word is disenfranchised, but those folks who've been working in a participatory way. And often those folks have been like fighting an uphill battle to get to participation in the organization. And then kind of in one fell swoop, it's like, nope, all that effort is gone. And so I think it can just be quite demoralizing and really undermine even those folks who are doing their best to kind of do it within the organization as well.
Yeah, there was a great quote from one of our clients recently, which was as fast as possible, but as slow as needed.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think that's like bang on. Of course, we need speed, but if that is at the cost of actually delivering a good quality change or a change that is responsive to people's real needs, are the risks really worth it? Right. And there's also something for me that I feel like we're seeing people revert back to behaviors that we know don't work, right? That have been tried and tested and failed, right? In terms of like large scale rollout across systems.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a real danger of like in the urgency of these times, right, that is created through financial contraction and all of these things, that we actually just repeat mistakes at institutional and system-wide levels that we know don't work. There's a real risk in that, right?
I think there's a huge risk in that. And I think the other risk, just to be quite clear about, is that risk toward more voice, more equitable participation, more, when we contract and pull back and decrease kind of experimentation and testing, right? At every point, that means there'll be less people involved, right?
Yeah.
Which means that there will be less voices, which means fewer voices. Those historically who have power in the organization will be more heard, right? Which does a couple of things. One, of course, it then decreases your, your efforts on equity take a hit, but also your solutions are not as good because they have not been informed broadly by people who have different roles and positions and perspectives and lived experiences. And so what you're rolling out then, not only is it not equitable in its conception, but then what you roll out is more likely to reinforce current status quo, current structure, current oppressional.
I feel like you're saying that like a small group of white boys in a room doesn't get to proper decision making, and like, I'm just not sure we've tested. I'm not sure we've got the data in on that yet. I think we need to try that for another 400 years. I do. Let's just get some more like middle-aged white men, stick them in a room, 4 or 5 of them max, and they can just make decisions for millions. And I think it works out generally.
Well, look, I mean, I think, maybe it is time to continue that experiment a little bit longer.
No, it is totally not. Like, we know it doesn't work, but we're seeing people go back to it because it's the easiest to do, because in some ways they're the people who are in the easiest reach because they're already in positions of power, right? And so it's almost like this is the time to steady the ship and hold the course, right? Rather to what we're already doing, right? Rather than to go back and try what we know, but nor is it the time to like accelerate off into the future and leave everybody for dust. It's actually the time to like bend your knees, go with the rolling seas, right? Steady the ship, steady the course. This is good work, right? And we know that it has some benefits, right? We know that it like integrates the necessary voices into the design process, right? That the kind of testing and refining will incrementally improve the quality of what we're doing and graduate to greater and greater levels of scale in such a way that it has a greater chance of success. Like, we know that testing and refining does these things, and it reduces resistance in rollout.
That's right.
Right? Because people are engaged in it. You don't have to spend 2 years convincing people you made a good decision, because they're involved in the decision and therefore are more ready to take immediate action as a result, right? So I think there's tactical and strategic benefits,
right?
Not just risks.
Right. And I think what I want to say is, in this moment, in this environment, I think the dominant concerns are around time and resourcing. And there is no doubt that experimentation testing takes more time and more resources than for white guys in a room. It does. That is true. However,
in the short term.
In the short term, exactly. In the short term. However, you also, it's like, so if those are the only 2 factors, right? In the short term, like, that's absolutely what you want to go, but it's incredibly short-sighted. And there are other factors to consider. What do you want to build that's sustainable, that's long-term, right? We know that broader informing, we know that looking toward issues of equity, we know that actually having solutions that more people can wrap their arms around and take forward, right? Those are what we need. So those are also considerations that just, I think sometimes just on our mind, or people are like, yeah, that's great, but that's long term. And what we're saying is actually time and resources in the short term. It's just a very short-sighted way to begin to make some of these decisions. It's not that they can't weigh. It's not that it doesn't matter. I think I see our clients trying really, really hard to meet the current crisis and hold the long term. But as long as time and resources are the predominant way that you're going to evaluate what you're doing, right? That's just like, I feel like it's like whack-a-mole, that game?
And so I think that hold the course, hold steady is like a huge part of the messages that we're giving out to people we're working with, our clients, our community collaborators. It's hold course, hold steady. This pays out in the long term. Keep investing in this approach. Like, you're going to see the dividend of this. And actually the short-term pain during this period of investing this approach, right, is a far better investment than the type of risk that comes from reverting to, more traditional change-making approaches.
Right.
So I think that's a huge part. I mean, we're very deliberately putting ourselves forward and being very proactive in the kind of type of advice that we're giving to our clients right now, and being very, very clear around what we think the risks are and what our recommendations are about how they respond to those risks. Like that's a very deliberate part of our approach to how we're supporting kind of system-wide change makers at the moment.
And I just want to say before we close, because I know when you close, like that's hard. That's hard work.
It's very hard work.
I mean, the amount of pressure that I think our clients who are trying to maintain a systemic view in this particular crisis are experiencing is, I mean, it's just overwhelming. And so part of what, you know, just to say like, yes, this is what you should do. This is what we're up for. This is what we're supporting leadership. But like actually a part of that is also like, and it's very hard work. This is a very hard course to stay. And so part of why we wanted to put this out here is if you're alone doing this, like know there are other leaders in it. And it actually, I think it feels overwhelming and too much sometimes for some of our clients. And I just want to say like, keep it up and we got your back. We'll do what we can. And this isn't easy work.
As fast as possible, as slow as needed.
You love a slogan. That's good.
You got a one-liner.
It's good.
All right. Take care, friends. Thanks for staying with us.